A mental representation, or cognitive representation, in philosophy of mind, cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and cognitive science, is a hypothetical internal cognitive symbol that represents external reality, or else a mental process that makes use of such a symbol, a formal system, for making explicit certain entities or types of information, together with a specification of how the system does this. Mental representation is the mental imagery of things that are not currently seen or sensed by the sense organs. In our minds we often have images of objects, events, and settings. For example, if you were asked to recall a birthday party, you could probably remember the people, the place where it was held, and things that you saw, and maybe even the things you smelled. You cannot actually smell and see those things, but you can imagine them. In contemporary philosophy, specifically in fields of metaphysics such as philosophy of mind and ontology, a mental representation is one of the prevailing ways of explaining and describing the nature of ideas and concepts. Mental representations, or mental imagery, enable representing things that have never been experienced as well as things that do not exist. Think of yourself traveling to a place you have never been before, or having a third arm. These things have either never happened, or are impossible, and do not exist, yet our brain and mental imagery allows us to imagine them. Although visual imagery is more likely to be recalled, mental imagery may involve representations in any of the sensory modalities, such as hearing, smell, or taste. Koslin proposes images are used to help solve certain types of problems. We are able to visualize the objects in question, and mentally represent the images to solve it. Representationalism, also known as indirect realism, is the view that representations are the main way we access external reality. Another major prevailing philosophical theory posits that concepts are entirely abstract objects. The representational theory of mind attempts to explain the nature of ideas, concepts, and other mental content in contemporary philosophy of mind, cognitive science, and experimental psychology. In contrast to theories of naive or direct realism, the representational theory of mind postulates the actual existence of mental representations which act as intermediaries between the observing subject and the objects, processes, or other entities observed in the external world. These intermediaries stand for, or represent to the mind the objects of that world. For example, when someone arrives at the belief that his or her floor needs sweeping, the representational theory of mind states that he or she forms a mental representation that represents the floor and its state of cleanliness. The original or classical representational theory probably can be traced back to Thomas Hobbes, and was a dominant theme in classical empiricism in general. According to this version of the theory, the mental representations were images, often called ideas of the objects or states of affairs represented. For modern adherents, such as Jerry Fodor, Steven Pinker, and many others, the representational system consists rather of an internal language of thought, i.e., mentalities. The of thoughts are represented in symbolic structures, the formulas of mentalities, which, analogously to natural languages, but on a much more abstract level, possess syntax and semantics very much like those of natural languages.